to read the CARS way, the three ingredients of every passage. And I think this is something that most of us don't have a lot of time to think about when you're kind of rushing through to prepare for the MCAT. But since I've been working with CARS for a number of years now, and having worked with a lot of students, I've seen some patterns in the kind of way the AMC provides their passages, the way they're structured, and even more importantly than the passages themselves, the interaction between the passages written and kind of the questions that are asked, and how can we kind of use a framework to to connect these two and structure our thinking when we're reading. And so I've kind of gone through, I don't even know how many CARS passages now, and I've built kind of a framework that I'm going to discuss today. And I've couched it in terms of kind of three ingredients. So thing, it's like a pancake. I don't know how many ingredients are pancakes, but that simple thing in a way. And that's what we're going to focus on. So three ingredients I've gone through, and I've actually kind of broken them down, going through passages and saying, what ingredient would this phrase or this sentence be? And I've done this on a number of passages, and they're relatively evenly dispersed. It also depends on any given passage. So focus of kind of what we're dealing with. And the first group is what I call key points or claims. And these are really the key core ideas that the author is trying to take from their head and put in. It's the reason the author wrote that passage. Now, most people think in terms of CARS, like what's the main idea of the passage, right? And that's great. That's super important. It's going to help you understand it's going to help you answer a lot of questions. The difficulty, the easy passages aren't the reason you're here today, right? The easy passages aren't the reason that you've kind of reached out to testing solutions. It's the hard passages. And the problem on CARS is that the hardest passages, the ones that kind of, very sad and frustrated, are not always right, and they're not always well written. And so you kind of blast through the passage, and then you get to the end and you say, well, what was that about? It's a pretty hard task to do if it's a 600 word passage. It's hard to say what was that about, and sometimes the author doesn't even have a coherent kind of focused thesis, right? They're kind of all over the place, bouncing around. And so when I talk about key points and claims, and we're gonna do a deep dive on these, but I'm talking about kind of the key point that the author is making in each paragraph. Okay, I'm not talking about kind of the overall main idea. I'm talking about in this paragraph, in paragraph 1, why did the author write that paragraph? Why did they put the words in that paragraph in that way? What is the idea they're trying to communicate to you? And so instead of leaving kind of the act of comprehension end of the passage where you go, what was the main idea? I really believe in building comprehension as you go along, and in focusing in each paragraph about what was the point. And so in a way you could think of this as a mini main idea, right? What was the mini main idea of this paragraph? And if you do this for each paragraph, what you will end up with is an overall structure of the passage, and be virtually impossible for you not to know what the main idea is if you understand the key points the author is making throughout the passage. So we'll talk more about this, and it'll also, I think, become even more clear as we put passages together. This first category, key points, key claims, it's certainly by far the most important, right? If you didn't points or claims as you're reading through the passage, you don't understand what the author's doing, right? You might understand bits and pieces, but you don't have an overall view. And so if you feel like you're lost or your comprehension is kind of, fading, it's because you're missing these key points and claims. The second ingredient is going to be the backing, the reason to believe the key points, right? They're the support, as I call them. And support can be examples. They can be just further explanation. They can be analogies. They can be quotes. A wide range of what support can be, but at base, support just backs up the claims. It gives you the reason to believe the claims, the key points. So we'll go into more detail on support as well. And then the final ingredient is what I call details. And details are, right, they're extra information. They're rarely essential for understanding the key points, and most details fairly straightforward and easy on CARS, right? It's did you understand this sentence, right? And what this sentence is saying. And it's pretty straightforward. It's just a fact-based question. Those sorts of questions actually aren't terribly common on CARS. You will get some, but they're also usually some of the easiest questions, or probably not questions you're missing. And we'll also talk about kind of ways today to structure your thinking to improve recall, both of the key points, but kind of support and details as well. So I'm going to pause here and just remind you, if you have any questions.
Testing Solutions CARS Bootcamp provides day-by-day, step-by-step instruction that teaches you the techniques that produce ultra-high MCAT CARS scores. Sign up and get started today.